All right. Let's start by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem, Ruchah Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one pretty much is GMS is a prophetic camp. This is a title I got from the Elder Pastor watching this video, the hour and 30 some odd minute one. And pretty much this is why we report on all different, news outlets and different things that we come across pertaining to prophecy. Now, last night before I went to bed, I did a lesson, a quick, breaking, dated March 2nd, 2026, to where I was reacting to this video here. Iran hits Dimona, Israel nuclear facility. This morning I checked different sources. They said this is not true. It didn't happen. When you go to this individual's page, the people on the comment board, some of them are cursing them out. Some of them are saying it's true. But I haven't seen anything that states or, corroborates that, Iran actually hit the nuclear facility in Dimona, Israel. There's nothing to really, solidify that. So, like I said, I was just reporting on it. I didn't say it actually happened. I said, this is what I heard. This individual here is reacting to the video. I even said in there I didn't check any other sources, but if that did happen, if it did happen, that would be a major blow, and it would be, it would be something to talk about, So just wanted to make mention of that because I did do this video, So those of you that did watch it, I even put a comment on here that says sources are saying this is not true. All right, so it remains to be seen, whether it is or not. Now you have individuals like Scott Ritter and others, Pepe Escobar and many other individuals that are talking about different situations in the media, and that I know of so far, I haven't heard anyone talk about that, and that would be something major. So if that actually happened, I'm sure Scott Ritter, Pepe Escobar, Joe Napolitano, Judge Joe Napolitano, and others out there that are, reporting on these geopolitical incidents and events around the world would have said something about it. So, with that being said, I just wanted to get that out the way. Let's go real quick to two scriptures. First one we're going to go to is Ecclesiastes 39. I don't really have anything to go into. I've been waiting for the Spirit to hit me, and nothing was really coming. So, as I was listening to the Elder Pastor's video, he threw out that title, which he didn't mention it was a title or anything. He said GMS is a prophetic camp. He said the prophets, it was a company of prophets, not a camp. And pretty much, I wanted to delve into that because that is the case. And this is why we report on all these different, news that are breaking everywhere. And the word company goes back to the word with bread, like a companion. A companion is someone that you break bread with. Kam is with, and pan is where you get, or pan is where you get the word bread from. So a companion is someone you break bread with. All right. So the company of prophets were, men that got together that had the same mindset, that were inspired by Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai, and that spoke, the same things. And the company of prophets, you best believe they didn't come together as a unity camp, because they were just Israelites. Don't work like that. If you're not speaking the same thing, then there's nothing there to mesh the whole thing together. All right, so Ecclesiastes 39:1, it says, "But he that giveth his mind to the law of the Most High, Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai, and is occupied in the meditation thereof, will seek out the wisdom of all the ancients, and be occupied in prophecies," plural. All right, be occupied in prophecies. Now, I'm going to pull this up, and I want to go. Let me get rid of this. Go to what is a prophecy according to the Bible. In the Bible, prophecy is a divine message from the Most High communicated through a human agent, a prophet, to his people, intended for edification, exhortation, comfort, or warning. Okay, so that brought to mind a couple of precepts. Damn, what was the other one? Amos 3 and 7, real quick. It says, surely the Lord power will, matter of fact, I start at 6. Shall the trumpet be blown in the city, and the people not be afraid? Shall there be evil in the city, and the Lord have not done it? So if there's anything that's going on evil in any city, it's the Lord Yahweh Bashim Shai that's doing it. And he tells us of it before he actually does it, so that, Jake can be warned, and these nations can know the reason why these things are coming upon them. Esau in government, international bankers and these billionaires, so on and so forth, they shouldn't be surprised when certain calamities come down and upon the world or upon themselves, because you have the prophets out here that's telling you. And this is why, in the parable of Lazarus and the rich man, Abraham told, the rich man, they have Moses and the prophets, let them hear them. Because if they don't hear Moses and the prophets, they're not going to hear one that comes back from the dead. So Isaiah 42:9, behold, the former things are come to pass, and new things do I declare. Before they spring forth, I tell you of them. And why does the Lord do that? So that we can know that it's a divine message that's coming from him. That's why it behooves, you out there that's watching, you Israelites out there that's watching, to take heed. NLT, everything I prophesied has come true. And now I will prophesy again. I will tell you the future before it happens. I like this. This is pretty good. And that's what it is. It's future events. As we read here in the AI overview, or what is a prophecy according to the Bible. In the Bible, prophecy is a divine message from the Most High, communicated through a human agent, a prophet, to his people, intended for edification, exhortation, comfort, or warning. It functions both as forthtelling, proclaiming the Most High's truth / will in the present, and foretelling, revealing future events, often regarding the Messiah or judgment. And that is the truth. Now, when we go back to Amos 3 and 7 now, it says, surely the Lord power, Yahweh Bashim Shai, will do nothing, but he revealeth his secret unto his servants, the prophets. So before the Lord makes a move, the secrets or the mysteries or the things that are going to happen, he tells the prophets about them first. So it won't be a surprise to the people, although to most, they're going to get caught with their pants, down, so to speak, because they're not going to give heed, because there's the ingredient of giving heed to the message that's being taught is not given to them, because they were never sealed from the beginning with that thawat, which is the Hebrew word for mark in the book of Ezekiel 9, which means exempt from judgment. All right? So in the NLT it says, indeed, the sovereign Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai never does anything until he reveals his plans to his servants, the prophets, and that's the reason why it's done. Right? There was another one that just came to mind. I can't think of it right now. It says, the lion hath roared, who will not fear? The Lord Yahweh Bashim shall have spoken, who can but prophesy? And that's the bottom line. When the Lord speaks, somebody's going to prophesy. Because when the people were lauding Yahweh Shai as the son of David, Hosanna in the highest, and the wicked Pharisees and them were saying, you see what these people are saying? Forbid him, or something along those lines. what did Yahushua say? If they kept silence, the rocks would jump up and start prophesying. You know, I'm just merely paraphrasing. You know, so it's impossible for the Lord to give forth his prophecy and someone not speak or say something about it. All right. Based on that, let's go to Jeremiah 1:4. Then the word of the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua came unto me, saying, Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. Before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, meaning made thee holy, sealed thee. And this is why, go right back to the 1 Corinthians 14:32. And the spirits of the prophets are subject to the prophets, because it's not just one prophet. That's why it says spirits. There's more than one prophet. You know, you have 144,000. These were men that are prophets, that were prophesied. You know, that would be the leading men of Israel on the planet Earth, that would guide the elect, you know, to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. But because the rest of Israel is not going to get it right now. So it says, and the spirits of the prophets are subject to the prophets. So going back to Jeremiah 1:5, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee, and before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. So we are to tell the nations where they're going, and we are, just as well as we are to tell the Israelites, that if they don't get themselves together, the Lord is going to destroy them. You know, and the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua is truly the first author of what they call the revelation of the method. And this is where Esau tries to, insert himself into this thing. Because they're trying to be like the Most High. This is why they'll tell you stuff ahead of time in movies, in sitcoms, in cartoons, on different ads and posters and, commercials. Because they're trying to be like the Most High. It says revelation of the method is a term often used in alternative media, occult, and conspiracy analysis, frequently associated with researcher Michael A. Hoffman II, to describe a psychological warfare tactic. Definition: it is defined as a technique where the perpetrators of a malicious act or societal manipulation reveal their actions, methods, and intents in a veiled, ironic, or mocking manner, often in pop culture, news, or entertainment. It says purpose: it functions as a show of power, arrogance, and mind rape designed to psychologically break the target by showing them their subjugation while they are forced to witness it. And in the case of the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, it's to warn those that are to be warned, and the rest are not going to get it. That's why you have some individuals that will listen and get it, and others that won't. The majority of them will not get it. Let's go to 2 Corinthians 2:14. Now thanks be unto the Most High, which always causes us to triumph in Yahushai, and maketh manifest the savor of his knowledge by us in every place. Yeah, because men are the ones that prophesy. Israelite men of the elect, the prophets, they're the ones that prophesy. Right? I'm going to come back to that. Just bear with me 1 second. 2 Peter 1:19. We have also a more sure word of prophecy, whereunto you do well that you take heed, as unto a light that shineth in a dark place, unto the day dawn, which is Yahushai, and the day star arise in your hearts. The day star is Yahushai. All right? And those that are part of the elect, there will be something in you that will get activated once the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, or once you hear his word. It's going to be a sweet melody. It says, knowing this first, that no prophecy of the scriptures of any private interpretation, for the prophecy came not in old time by the will of man, but the holy men of the Most High spake as they were moved by the Holy Spirit. And this is why they're able to prophesy and speak, because we have a more sure word of prophecy. So going back to 2 Corinthians 2:15 now, For we are unto the Most High a sweet savor of Yahushua. So when we go out here and teach on the streets, when we go out here and teach, or when we're teaching, sit downs, or different lessons, quick hits, on the go, on the move, brothers do the in the news, prophecy watch, and so on and so forth. These are all things that are a sweet savor of Yahushua in the Most High. Because the only way we shine in the eyes of the divine is through Yahushua. Bottom line. And I wasn't trying to rhyme. In them that are saved and in them that perish. So no matter if you are saved or you perish, to the Lord the message is sweet because it's coming from Him. To the one we are the savor of death unto death. See? So to the ones that are to be destroyed, this message, is irritating to them. Like you had Bishop Nathaniel years ago. When I hear the names Yahweh and Yahushua, I scorn, because I know that evil is there. And that's that demon that's in them, that hates the names of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. That's saying that. That wasn't really him speaking. That was a demon that was inside of him. Now he's saying that Yahweh is Yahushua. So if this man does not repent, he's going to be destroyed. And he'll get the oil. In that dream, he'll get the oil back in the kingdom of heaven. But the only hope for him is that the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, gives him the oil prior to the destruction. Otherwise, he ain't going to make it if he keeps up with that attitude. It says, and to the other, the savor of life unto life. And that's why you hear some individuals that say this is like a beautiful, lovely song to them. That's something that they can't get enough of. Something that soothes their spirit. Because remember the scriptures say that, to set a mark upon the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. So this word here, this song, this music is a healing ointment to the spirit of the elect. It says, and who is sufficient for these things? Right, so in other words, those that are to be put to death is going to be a savor of death. Those that are to be put to get life, it's going to be a savor of life. That's who it's sufficient for. NLT, to those who are perishing, we are a dreadful smell of death and doom. See? But to those who are being saved, we are a life-giving perfume. And who is adequate for such a task as this? Right, so we are the ones that's out there through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Shai showing you and telling you. And whoever it be out there, that is to receive either life or death, is going to either receive this or reject it. All right? It says, for we are not as many which corrupt the word of the Most High, but as of sincerity. But as of the Most High in the sight of Yahweh, speak we in Yahweh Shai. Right? Because we're not doing this out of deceit. We're doing this in sincerity. And in sincerely, we're telling Jake out there that, we're in a heavy time of prophecy. And in this heavy time of prophecy, we're witnessing a lot of things happening and warnings going out so much that it's hard to keep up with all the warnings. And this shows you that we're getting closer and closer to the destruction because, the warnings are off the chain. They're off the meat rack. They're off the Richter scale. It's so much that we ourselves can't keep up with it. And, there's not enough men to go out there to push this word, to be able to carry the load. This is why Yahweh Shai said this in the book of Matthew 9. It's one of my favorites. 9 and 36. It says, but when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion on them because they fainted and were scattered abroad as sheep having no shepherd. So there was a lot of work to be done. Just like today. That's why GMS is a working camp. If you're not, working in GMS, you out of here. There was a brother that goes way back. I personally like the brother, but the brother had to be put out, because he wasn't doing anything. His page was just empty for years. And his only saving grace, I guess, back then was that he was in charge of watching other men, that actually, were bringing out, that make sure that they were doing their videos, but on the same note, he wasn't doing his videos. So brothers based off of that thought that, since he was on point of checking everybody and getting on them, that he was doing his part of the share or his share, and he wasn't. So brothers went back, checked, asked for his page, and they gave him, he took a while, finally they got the page, and then when they look at the page, it was years before he did the work. It was nothing on that, it was blank. And like I said, I personally liked the brother, I thought he was a good brother, I had to remove him back in 2017 as a head position because he was very young back then, and as and there was a situation that was taking place where he couldn't, hold on to the camp signs or certain things because he had started the camp, so I had to remove him out of there and put the head of the camp, I had to put the head of the camp there, who was a little older and was more responsible, and I felt bad about that. But that just goes to show we got to follow the Spirit. We can't follow our emotions. Emotions don't get the job done. The Spirit of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua get the job done. And he has never led us wrong. Where we go wrong is when we second guess the Spirit. That's where we go wrong at. But if we follow the Spirit, we'll never go wrong. All right? So it says, then saith he unto his disciples, because there's plenty of work to be done. Then saith he unto his disciples, the harvest truly is plenteous, but the laborers are few. What is the harvest? The harvest is the end of the world. We're in the end of the world. You should be celebrating it. Shout out to the brother Ayash out there in Indy. This is the end of the world, man. What you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Like Apostle Tara said years ago, when the kingdom is established, we ain't going to be going to camp in the kingdom. Hey, brother, get the signs. Make sure you get the signs. Get the bubble. Inside joke. Get some. Make sure everybody got car fare. We got to go to camp. Nah, ain't going to be no camp in the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven, like Apostle Tara put it years ago, right? Class that we were having in the school in Connecticut. He said the kingdom of heaven is going to be a long, never-ending weekend. You know how you had them long weekends? You had 4 or 5 days. Well, it's going to be a long, never-ending weekend. So ain't going to be no prophesying in the kingdom. Ain't going to be no, you got to go out there, stand for hours at the camp. No, that's going to be done once this system goes down. That's why, I'm going to come right back to this. That's why the Apostle Paul said, in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 1, right? In 21, for after that, in the wisdom of the Most High, the world by wisdom knew not the Most High. It pleased the Most High by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe. So once the salvation comes, there's no more preaching. There's no more going out on the camp. So Yahweh Shai said, Matthew 9:30, this is the time. This is it. If you're not going to be doing the work, if your page is empty for years or months or weeks, and if you don't have a good excuse, then you're out of here. Only advice I could say to brothers is just keep doing the work. Which if you weren't doing the work while you were here, I don't know if you're going to do the work now. But the scriptures say, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. So it says, then saith he unto his disciples, the harvest truly is plenteous, but the laborers are few. So there's very few laborers and much work to be done. So that's why, no matter how many videos you do a day, it's never going to be enough because the workload just keeps piling up. There's much to do. And there's so much going on. So there's no time for any idle hands. Everybody should be working, Everybody should be, laboring. Like the dream that somebody had years ago, and they put it on, just when we used to go back and forth on the comment boards. They put a comment on the comment board. They said they had a dream with Great Millstone, men in Great Mill. It was two houses. There was one house with Great Millstone. The other house was with the HOI. I believe if I remember right, that you had, the HOI, Elder Priest Sabak and them brothers, and then you had GMS. He said when you went to GMS, the house in GMS, the house was immaculate. It was clean. Everybody was working. Everything was pristine. But he said when you went to the other house, them brothers were taking breaks, eating sandwiches, doing certain things. Not that they don't do the work. They're doing the work, but they weren't, hastening, for lack of better words. So if you're in Great Millstone, you gotta do the work. If you a slothful individual, then this is not the place for you. Because this is a working camp, and Great Millstone is a prophetic camp, and we're in the greatest time of prophecy ever on the planet Earth. And there's plenty to talk about. There's plenty to go into. So everybody should be, all you men out there that's part of Great Millstone should be out there doing lessons. And just for the record, as that situation happened, with that one brother that hadn't been doing the work for years, you brothers out there, you got to appoint somebody every once in a while, to kind of peek into some of these brothers, pages. I mean, it's just, I hate to have to do it that way, but obviously, if you leave Jake to do stuff, they're not going to do it. So that means that we have to, you don't want to have to baby anybody, but it is what it is. So, verse 38, pray ye therefore the Lord of the harvest, that he will send forth laborers into his harvest. Right, real laborers. Ones that's going to actually do the work. Because at the end of the day, no matter if you came in at the first hour or the 11th hour, there's still plenty of work to be done. And just because you came in at the 11th hour doesn't mean you could, you could just, cruise. And just because you came in at the first hour doesn't mean you could slack. And just because you came in around the 7th hour don't mean that you could cruise either. There's plenty of work to be done. You see the workload going out through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So, where were we at before this? 2 Corinthians 2:17, for we are not as many which corrupt the word of the Most High, but as of sincerity, but as of the Most High, in the sight of the Most High speak we in Yahushai. That's right. So, seeing that we are prophets to the nations, and also prophets to Israel, and the Lord revealed the secrets unto his servants the prophets, when we go to 2 Ezra chapter 9 and verse 1, he answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself. So, even though there's no way to corroborate that information of, did Iran strike the nuclear facility in Dimona, Israel. There's no way to confirm that. Based on the current reports, Iran has not successfully struck the Dimona nuclear facility. Let me just put 2026. Because I'm sure if that was the case, there would be a lot of individuals talking about that. Because one thing about, Scott Ritter and all those other political, geographic talking heads, so to speak, they don't hold back. They just bring it out. So AI overview. Based on available reports, as of early March 2026, there is no indication that Iran successfully struck the Dimona nuclear facility in Israel. While intense reciprocal military actions occurred, reports from the IAEA on March 2, 2026 noted no damage to regional nuclear installations, focusing instead on damage to Iranian sites. So we don't know if this is just something that actually did happen and they're taking the focus off of it, because here in the West they're not really reporting as to what's going on over there. You know, the real report. They're saying that Iran is getting slaughtered, but that's not the case when you watch these different alternative media channels. It's the other way around. You know, but you know, in the Western media is making it seem like everything is cool. I mean, I've seen TikTok videos. I'm not TikTok. I don't have TikTok. I don't have Instagram either. Instagram videos. Sometimes I can watch them. Sometimes I can't. So Instagram videos that brothers sent and that have been using of the great, you know, explosions happening in the land of Israel. A lot of, you know, you can see the bombs just coming down in there. Boom, 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 boom. You know, people scurrying like rats. I mean, you know, it's crazy. But this is prophecy. You know, the scriptures say that surely the least of the flock will draw them out. The scriptures don't lie. Why is America dropping bombs on Iran and doing them strikes in Iran? Because of the land of Israel. What is the land of the people there, which are not the people, right? What does it say in prophecy? It says, surely the least of the flock will draw them out. When you go to Jeremiah, the 49th chapter, which is connected to the Edomites. And the least of the flock is who? The Amalekites, which will be the head or chief of the nations. They were the first nation we went to war with after coming out of Egypt. And also, they are the head, the top, the chief people that govern and rule and control everything on the planet Earth. The scriptures don't lie. That it would be them particular individuals that would draw America, Babylon the Great, into this destruction. Because then when you go to the 50th chapter or the 51st chapter, it also mentions about Babylon that the least of the flock will draw them out. And that's exactly what we see happening. They're not in there because, you know, some leader in Egypt, or some leader in other parts of Africa, or some leader in any European, so-called European country, or any leader of any Indian, so-called Indian countries, you know, or Australia or Canada or anything, any of that. It was people from the land of Israel. And they're saying that, you know, this individual, Netanyahu, that he ran to Germany to hide with his family, but then there's reports that say that that's not true, you know. So we don't know if they're just hiding, which they like to do, plausible deniability, or if it's actually true, but they're not reporting on it because they don't want to make them look bad. So 2 Ezra 9:1, he answered me then and said, measure out the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before. See, when thou seest part of the signs past, measure out the time diligently. How do you measure the time? By watching what's going on and connecting it to prophecy. Or like Elder Apostle Gabar likes to say, marrying it with prophecy. All right, and it says diligently, measured out of time diligently, meaning you got to constantly be watching what's going on, watching videos, watching news, you know, seeing different reports, you know, brothers, you know, that's sending all kind of information out, you know, whether it's on Instagram platforms, whether it's on Facebook platforms, whether it's, you know, different, you know, news articles that brothers come across pertaining to prophecy. It says, when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. And that's exactly what's happening. The Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai is visiting the planet Earth with his word, with his prophecies. See? While the prophets were being mocked, Great Millstone was being mocked back in 07, 08, 09, 2010, about the MOTB, about the concentration camps, about Jacob's Trouble, about all these different events and things that are happening now these same individuals that was ridiculing are now actually talking about it, reporting on these things, the very same things that at one time they mocked, the very same things that they said at one time that would not happen. Now all of a sudden they talking about it. They talking about some ice baby, you know, the martial law situation. They talking about the digital infrastructure, the digital system, digital currency. You know, you can pay with your phone and all kind of. Says, wait a minute, they might throw a micro chip in there, but what happened? I thought that wasn't it. I thought you couldn't buy or sell with the RFID technology. And it's a very easy fix. All he had to do was say, well, you know, I would like to apologize, which he's not going to do unless the Lord take that demon off of him. I'd like to apologize. You know, I was wrong. You know, I've mocked and ridiculed this, you know, but, you know, all the evidence is pointing to the micro chip being the MOTB. You know, I said before that, you know, what does RFID have to do with buying and selling? I was wrong about that. It's very easy fix. And you can respect the individual like that more than an individual that has no character. And he's going to keep on sliding and lying, just like them small hats. You know, plausible deniability and not, nope, if you listen closely, moron, no accountability. But it is what it is. Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world. And we see that happening right now. Now, there's reports saying that there's people in Iran protesting because they're glad that, you know, that the supreme leader is gone. You know, that they're, you know, chanting against, you know, the regime in Iran and all this, and they're saying that is absolutely not true. They're saying that, you know, it's maybe a very small percentage of people may feel that way, but the majority of people that are protesting, they're saying that pretty much the reason why they're protesting is because they want revenge for what America and Israel did. So you're getting all different type of conflicting reports. I can file a report, inside joke. Then shalt thou well understand. See, when you see uproars of in the world and uproars of earthquakes in the world and uproars of the people, then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that were what? Before thee. So before they spring forth, what the Lord is going to tell us about it. Even from the beginning. For like as all that is made in the world hath a beginning and an end, and the end is manifest, we're seeing the manifestation of the end today. We're witnessing the greatest time of prophecy ever. We're actually seeing things that the prophets back then desired to look into, desired to understand. They saw the visions. They wrote the visions down. They got sick because of the visions. And they wanted to understand the visions, but it wasn't given to them at that time to understand. You know? So eventually the Lord put the Spirit upon them to let them know that what they're doing or what they saw and what they're witnessing is not going to be for a long way off. It's going to be many generations, you know, in the future. It says, even so the times also of the highest, and they still didn't even understand what it was. Even so, even the times also of the highest have plain beginnings in wonders and powerful works, and ending in effects and signs. And we're seeing the effects and the signs working right now through these prophecies. We're actually witnessing all of these different prophecies, you know, happening or being fulfilled at the same time. You know, the beginning stage, well, not the beginning stages, we're in it. Now, as far as World War III, which is the final war to end all wars, the third war, we're actually witnessing the beginning stages that's cementing that whole thing, because the troops have already been in place going back to the 80s, you know, and beyond, possibly even before that. But now we're witnessing, you know, the beginning stages of that final war. But what's holding that back pretty much is the MOTB, which is a micro chip, and that thing is moving rampant. Because while you have the Epstein files, and you have these different wars and all this stuff going on around the world, these gossip channels, you know, one thing you don't really hear a whole lot about is the economy, as far as the direction that the economy is going. Now, the economy, you know, is doing bad, this, that, the other, you know, inflation, so on and so forth. But the direction of the way that the future system is going to be worked, so to speak, is not really being discussed like that, except for from the prophets and maybe certain individuals out there that speak about economic things, that are maybe economists, but they're not really talking. Those are not really major talking points. It's a whole lot of stuff that's thrown out there to pretty much blind the minds of the people. You got now Trump talking about releasing UFO files and so on and so forth and blah, blah, blah. Why do you think they're doing that? Because they're pretty much, taking the attention of the people off of this digital system and the digital trap that's being set before them. 2 Corinthians 4:3, but if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are who? Lost. So if you can't get this gospel, that means that you're lost. If you come on this platform and you watch the videos and you scoff, then you're lost. If you come on this platform and you think this is ridiculous, then the gospel is hid from you because you're lost. In whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not. So the Lord allowed the God of this world, which are these Edomites, these so-called, white people that are in charge of, putting out disinformation out there, so that the individuals that would wake up don't wake up because the Lord don't want them to wake up. So you say, well, I'm gonna fact check this, I'm gonna fact check that, and what you're gonna run into is a big fat, zero. You ain't gonna get the information you want. As to 15 years ago, 20 years ago, the information you would type in on Google would come up, on the internet would come up quickly. You didn't have to do too much searching. You get all kind of information. But now, since these devils bought all these different platforms, there's a lot of redirection going. A lot of, lies, and so-called fact-checking that says that, well, this is not true, that's not true, but it be actually true. Just like the situation with, with this Iran thing. Something may have happened, but they're hiding it. Or it didn't happen. But it remains to be seen. We'll see within the next few days if any of these talking heads talk about this. All right, so it says, in whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Yahushua, who is the image of the Most High, should shine unto them. Right, so just keep your eyes on the prophecies. Keep your eyes peeled. Those of you men of Great Millstone, make sure you're doing your videos. Now, don't be slacking. And if you know of a brother that hasn't been, on it, you got to get on him, talk to him. And if not, if he just refuses to do the videos, then he got to go. No matter how cool the brother may be. Scripture says that right eye offend you, you got to pluck it out. Better to enter into the kingdom of heaven halt and maim than having both hands and be thrown into the lake of fire, which is destruction. I'm just merely paraphrasing. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. Till the next time I say, Shalom.